The Pittsburgh Steelers have always had the same way about going about things. There's always an adjustment period. There's always a waiting game with newer players. Well, it's time they change their ways. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbein. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers To Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers changing their ways and adjusting for the moment. And right now, their moment is upon them. And if they do not adjust, well, things are going to get bad. And they're going to run into circumstances that they don't want to run into, and they're going to be taking unnecessary risks because they stick to their ways, their guns, however you want to put it. In Pittsburgh, there is always an adjustment period. Always. This team loves to talk about jumping onto a moving train, but really, when you jump on that moving train, you got a long way to go before you get to a point in it where you're eligible to play, where the Steelers trust you and allow you to step onto a field in a crucial moment or more than one moment when they need to call on you. It's always been their way. It's always been Mike Tomlin's way. And I don't know if it's just how Pittsburgh operates, because I've only been around one coach and I've only been alive for really one coach. I was around for Bill Cowher, but I was young and I didn't understand who the Pittsburgh Steelers were or how they operated by the time he left and Mike Tomlin took over. But in the last 17 years, I have learned and studied how Mike Tomlin operates. And in the last 5 years, I've dove as deep as possible into how Mike Tomlin operates. And what I found is that the adjustment period in Pittsburgh is as long as possible. It seems like nobody can learn this defense or offense fast enough to get involved when the Steelers need them. That if you get here, and you could take Ahkello Witherspoon as a perfect example two years ago, where he shows up, takes him almost the entire season before the Steelers trust him to play a defensive snap, and then the next year, they trust him enough to be their cornerback one. That doesn't make a ton of sense, right? Why did it take so long to get out there if the next season you were looking at this guy as a stud? Why? Because the Steelers have a hard time trusting somebody who's new, have a hard time allowing somebody to emerge themselves into a group that is already formed. That's who the Pittsburgh Steelers are. That's who Mike Tomlin is. The moving train for new guys moves like this. It never gets faster. And this year, that moving train is moving as slow as possible for Joey Porter Jr. and for Desmond King and for a couple of others, but those are the big ones. And I don't know if Desmond King fixes anything or improves the defense at all. I have no idea. But I know Joey Porter Jr. does. I know Joey Porter Jr. makes a world of difference for the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary and for their cornerback room. And I don't think that he should go out there and start or replace Levi or Patrick Peterson. What I do think is that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have enough options right now, and he is their best one to add to that group. He is their best one to help fix a concern that they have as they move forward. The Pittsburgh Steelers right now have two guys who are probably really decent number twos. Levi Wallace is Levi Wallace. And yeah, he gets criticized on social media and people have a hard time with them. I understand that. But at the end of the day, everybody knew who Levi Wallace was. He was this way at Alabama. He was this way in Buffalo. He was this way in Pittsburgh last year. He has limitations when it comes to his athleticism. He has limitations when it comes to whether or not he could keep up with names like Devontae Adams or Amari Cooper. But at the same time, the guy comes up with plays, and he comes up with plays pretty consistently. And he's always somehow finding his way to the football. I don't care what the knock is on Levi Wallace, but you always have to acknowledge that he does good as well. And that in the NFL, I don't know if he's a CB1. I don't think he is, but he is a CB2, probably the best CB3 you could possibly imagine. And that's pretty good for his journey and how he came up here and how limited he is compared to some guys like Patrick Peterson or like Joey Porter Jr. Patrick Peterson, on the other hand, at one point was the best corner in the NFL, the best corner of his generation. Patrick Peterson's a future Hall of Famer, an absolute stud, a guy that all these guys looked up to. Well, he's also 32, 33 years old. And at this point, he's outlived his career. It's coming to an end. You can notice that it's coming to an end. He makes plays, and he's going to continue to make plays because he's Patrick Peterson and he's a Hall of Famer. But at the same time, he's going to let guys go, and he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to cost you plays. And again, probably the best corner 2 you could have in football. Definitely the best corner 3 you could have in football. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have 2 of them. And that's great. You look at last year and you say, okay, well, the corners in Pittsburgh weren't the best, but they turned out just good enough. Well, the corners in Pittsburgh last year coming into the league were supposed to be Ahkello Witherspoon, Cam Sutton, and Levi Wallace. Witherspoon was looked at as the cornerback 1, and he is at best a cornerback 2. Cam Sutton was looked at as the cornerback 2, and yeah, he developed into a cornerback 1, but last year at best he was a cornerback 2 coming into the season, and then Levi Wallace was in the same place. So the Steelers didn't have a star. They just had a couple of options to allow themselves to utilize who has the hot hand. That's what they need to do this year. And it doesn't make any sense that they're not. Joey Porter Jr., let me read off a couple of stats here. 45 coverage snaps, 1 catch allowed, 1 pass defensed, 39.6 passer rating allowed, which ranks first amongst rookie corners. He has played a very limited role in the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, but he's made 2 humongous plays. One of them at the beginning of week 3 against Davante Adams, and the other one, a game-sealing pass deflection against the Cleveland Browns in week 2. But this is a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers do not want out there at all times. And I don't think he should be out there at all times. But I look at it like this. Joey Porter Jr. is the future cornerback 1 of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's how they view him. They view him as the next superstar at corner, the next Ike Taylor. That's who they want him to be. And I get it. He's not there yet. That's fine. But he's good enough to be on the field. He's good enough for this team to put him out there more than a couple of plays a game. He's good enough to play 50% plus of the snaps on defense. That's what he's good enough to do. And the Pittsburgh Steelers need options because they're going to run into Amari Coopers. They're going to run into T. Higgins and Davante Adams and Brandon Ayuk's and Deebo Samuels and all these guys along the way. And right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl window is open. And it's not the best, and this isn't the year that you should be screaming, oh, they should be in the Super Bowl this season. I don't know. I don't think that they should be. But I'm telling you that in the NFL life cycle, this is where the Pittsburgh Steelers' prime opportunity begins this season. And you never know what happens. You never know what's going to happen. So you might as well have the best scenario planned out. And the best scenario means that Joey Porter Jr. is a contributor to this team, a contributor to this defense, and that the Pittsburgh Steelers have 3 guys who may not be starter capable at all times, who may not be your cornerback 1, but you have 3 guys who are cornerback 2s, who you could utilize to find who has the hot hand and ride that hot hand, who you could distract offenses with and allow them to not know who's going to be where and kind of disguise so that they aren't able to put a guy like Brandon Ayuk wherever they want against whoever they want, or Davante Adams against whoever they want, or Amari Cooper against whoever they want, that they have to switch things up and that they're just as lost as the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is trying to figure out where these superstars are going to be. It works. And if Joey Porter Jr. turns into something great, awesome. If he doesn't, what is the loss there? What is the loss of throwing this kid into the fire and saying, hey, let's see if you work out. And if you don't work out yet, cool, we'll back it up. We will ease off. We have other options. But right now, you're just looking at it, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at it going, man, this kid makes plays. Keep him on the sidelines. He's not ready yet. Meanwhile, Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson are going to get gassed. They're going to get tired. It's going to be a long season playing nearly 100% of the snaps on defense, which is what Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace did the first 3 weeks of the year. It's just not sustainable. And it's the Pittsburgh Steelers way. I get it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have to change their ways. They get hollered at all the time by their fan base to change their ways. Their ways work a quarter of the time anymore. This is one of them where it's Joey Porter Jr. time. You got to put him on the field. You got to test him out. You have to have options. And if it doesn't work, cool, you go from there. But for right now, it makes 0 sense not to give this kid more opportunities and real opportunities, not just, oh, yeah, we're going to toss him out there another 5 snaps. No, play him half the game. See what happens. Worst case scenario, you play him 25% the next week. Best case scenario, by the end of the year, you got a stud on defense.